And introduce yourself to the crew, man.
Hey, peace and blessings. I go by I Am. Right now, I'm a published author. Here goes my book, Dad, I Love You, How to Love an Absent Father. In the meantime, I do speaking engagements.
Like public speaking, motivational speaking, or?
Public speaking, motivational. I like to use the term motivational instruction instead of motivational speaking.
It made you make that adjustment.
Motivational speaking is more so to give person energy, make them want to go out and do something. But you can make someone want to go out and do something, but they don't know what they need to be doing or how to get started. Opposed to motivational instruction, you're inspiring somebody to take action, but then you actually give them practical and pragmatic steps to go do what they need to do.
Right. So what inspired you to want to take that role? Because that's a role that I think a lot of people talk about, but they already step into that.
I never wanted to speak.
Really?
Never had no desire.
So this
in my
is interesting, then, man, because you kind of sound like me a little bit.
Never had one desire to speak. While I was incarcerated, I did 7 years in prison in Arkansas. I started studying under the Nation of Islam. I'm a Muslim. I was already professing Islam before then, but the Nation spoke to me in a way that nobody else could ever speak to me.
Right.
So while studying under them, I had gained a name for myself very fast because at my age, I was just turning 20 going into prison. I was one of the youngest brothers in the community, but one of the fastest ones to adopt the teachings and the principles. So I started generating a name for myself, but I was really I was a laborer. That's always been my thing. I've always been a servant. Never had a problem serving. And one day, one of the brothers I love him to death, he's actually mentioned in my book in my acknowledgments. His name's Jesse Buchanan. One day he told the imam, and that's what we call our spiritual leader in Islam, for this week's khutbah, which is the Arabic word for sermon, he said, let the brother do it. I froze up instantly because I wrote khutbahs, but I never wanted to do them. I wrote them for other people to use them. So he said, let the brother go up there. I think he can do it. So I spent 3 days writing the khutbah, got on stage, and didn't use anything I wrote. Didn't even do the same topic.
Really?
Just something moved me when I got up there, and I just went off the dome. I said, I'm gonna let the spirit just guide me in this. And it was actually quite successful. From that moment on, I didn't mind speaking louder and doing more speaking engagements until something occurred where, and I'm not gonna go too much detail, but we had some philosophical differences where at the time I pushed away from the Nation to go find what I felt was my own truths. And they pushed for me for a while. It was some conflict there for a while till we eventually regrouped and established the love again.
What was that? How was that experience for you? Like
the prison experience?
Yeah. Well, before we even get to that part, let's back it up. What led to the beginning of that journey?
There's two things that led me into going to prison. The actual action that was taking place that got me incarcerated, but then continuous decisions and habits that eventually led to that. I don't believe it's one action that gets you in that situation, or really any situation that's detrimental to your life. I believe it's continuous actions, decisions, and particularly thinking that makes you comfortable to put yourself in those situations until that ignorant side of you finally speaks to you and tells you, I'm invincible. I can't get caught. And in that scenario, I'm in a state nobody knows me. I'm in a city nobody knows me. I rarely know the people I'm with. I can get away with this. I got caught faster doing that than anything else my entire life. I got caught in 2 days.
Damn. 2 days. It don't take long. My boys say it take 30 days. Say it'll take about 30 days to mess your life up type thing. You get it in 2.
It takes 5 seconds. That's all it takes. It takes less than 10 seconds for you to lose everything.
And you said you were 19?
I was 19. I just turned 20. I have been 20 2 weeks.
Got caught in 2 days and ain't been 20. 2 weeks, boy. That is. So, were you on the path that you're on now and had a hiccup or a skip or something, or this is just long before?
It was an in between. One of the things I believe that separated me from a lot of my homeboys was our upbringing. My mother, we're from Philly originally. My mother was always into the teachings of self-knowledge. So I've read a lot of the major books, some books that they even just started talking about within the last few years, like Black Wall Street, the Willie Lynch letters, Niggas the Guys, The Making of the White Man. These were books I read as a child because these were my mother's books. I stayed in trouble all the time, so I had to always stay in the house. So it was either just stay there and be bored all day or play these games or read these books.
Yo, so how old were you, man, reading the Willie Lynch letter?
Play games or read books. The first time I touched it, I was about 9 years old, but I didn't understand it until I was 15. Actually, I didn't have a first level understanding until I was about 15. But it took really me getting incarcerated to actually understand what this book was saying. So that's what separated me from a lot of my friends. I had that upbringing. The first 7 to 10 years of your life is going to shape a part of your adulthood. Since I already had it when I was young, once I got incarcerated and started gravitating to it, it was natural because this was my foundation. What happened in between that period from as a child to the adult going incarcerated was, one, I didn't have no father. And I don't care what no woman says, it's a very rare chance that a woman can successfully raise a son that doesn't have a baby before he's 18, that doesn't go to prison, who doesn't ruin his life. That's rare. So the women that say they do it, all praise be to them. But that's not going to be most women's situation. And my mother did the best she knew how to do. But I already had my mind up what I was going to do because I was already missing that. Then identity-wise, I didn't feel I had an identity because I'm half Ethiopian. I don't look like nobody we grew up around. I know I'm black, but everybody else around me doesn't know I'm black. So I always feel the need to have to explain that. And then being in situations behind it,
so
I never really felt like I fit.
Ethiopian.
I just always felt like I was there.
Just completely.
I just started developing a relationship with the Ethiopian community for 2 reasons. The first one, I grew up around the older generation. I won't even say grew up. I was present around older Ethiopians. And the way when they saw me, then they saw my mother, they realized I wasn't fully Ethiopian. So there was a distance right there. But then on my part, because my father left, I had a resentment for everyone that looked like him. So I wasn't just too open myself. So it worked both ways.
Got you.
Because I had the opportunity to grow up looking the way I look, but I still grew up in the black community, I got to see everything that goes on in the black community. And I understand it because my mother taught me. But then when I actually started to get to know my Ethiopian side, I got to see their downsides too, particularly from generational. Right now, Ethiopia's in America, they're going through generational transitions. It's just now starting to take place here, but in places like DC or Seattle, they're already in their 3rd generation. Their 3rd generation is almost no different than black people here.
Like Americanized?
Americanized, but lost. Because again, you're here, but you don't really have a place.
Yeah.
One, a lot of Ethiopians, and not just Ethiopians, but people who come to this country, period, they don't really understand what black people themselves have been through here. And they don't understand that you're actually no different in this government's eyes. You're the exact same person. The thing is, because you're not a legal citizen and you come from another country, this country is a business. That's how America's always been. That's how America will always be. It's a business.
Right.
So they're developing relationships with your country to either misuse them in some point of future, which they primarily always do.
Yeah, we know how that goes.
Or they're just looking to do business with you. So how they treat you is going to determine their intent for dealing with that country. Now, the United States, what they do is so funny. They put the abuse thinking in the citizens. So the police don't have to be the ones abusing you. The government don't have to be the one abusing you. It's gonna be the citizens. Because the United States to influence that behavior and put it in the citizens. It's kind of like right after slavery and black people were prospering. The reality is white people never gave a shit about other white people. For them, it was class. What they did was make the lower class white people believe that these newly freed African Americans is out to take over, which caused these lower class white people to start going mayhem on black people.
Okay.
And it's no different here. With this generational change, the first generation are the ones that hold on strongly to their culture. The second generation, and those will be the ones probably within my age group to maybe some years younger, to I'll even give it teenagers, depending on when their parent moved here. But the third generation is the ones that don't care about the culture. Most of the time, they're only around it because their parents make them be around it. They don't actually care about it.
Right.
For them, their culture is no more than knowing how to do the dances, knowing what foods we eat, what they're thinking as American.
Right, okay. Yeah.
So I got to experience both of those. One from naturally growing up in the black community, but now decided to become a part of the Ethiopian community. I get to see all those. And because I don't have the same perspective they do, I get to see things for what they are.
So like, I think it's interesting that you're still able to start getting involved and everything like that, even without having your father around or anything like that. How was that? How did the relationship between you and your father end up the way that it was, and you being detached from Ethiopia and everything like that?
My father left when I was 5. My father was not really just there anyway. But the moments I did have him, I know this is my father, this is my dad. And he just came over one day and he left. And I knew at that moment something wasn't right. Because my mother's very expressive with how when she's not in a good mood or something. She's not expressive when she's in a good mood. She's definitely expressive when she's not in a good mood. But I knew something wasn't right, and I asked her, where's my father coming back? And she never answered me. So I knew what that meant right there.
Did that like create like a void or anything like that, or?
It gave me subtle changes that started when I was young. I had a real abandonment issues to the point I used to be nice when I was a child. I used to hug my mom just crying, thinking she might leave one day. She worked at the post office and she didn't come home till nights. I used to think there might be one day she don't want to come back. Then I stayed in trouble all the time, so I used to think she might get tired of me just stop and not never come back. Had emotional issues when it comes to women on top of that.
Yeah.
Any dude that grow up without his dad is gonna have some type of emotional issues with women, because one, the person that's supposed to be prospecting you, teaching you how to interact with women is supposed to be your father. What happens is your mother ends up doing it, but your mother is actually trying to raise you not to be the dude that hurt you. And she ends up grooming you to be the man that don't know women want. And you end up becoming the same dude that she was trying to raise you not to be. Because you like, shit, the other dude didn't work. So I'm gonna try this.
Right, man. So I take it, man, your mother had a hell of an impact on you, clearly. You know what I'm saying? So I mean, just judging from you, I can tell that she got to be a good, strong, upstanding person. You know what I'm saying? Loving, I'm assuming.
My mother is who she is. And it's just simple as that. She is who she is. And I accepted that. At some point, I had to accept that the people in my life that I choose to have in my life, they are who they are. And I'm actually gonna have more problems trying to see them or make them be something else. It's like when I was younger and I was on the path I was on, people gave themselves more grief trying to make me into what they thought I should be,
right,
than just letting me be who I am at this moment, which they had good intentions. But sometimes your good intentions can have negative results.
So how you end up in Atlanta, man?
Philly, even to this day, is one of the most dangerous cities in the United States. It's been like that, I think, since the 80s, maybe 90s. I'm not absolutely sure when it took that transition, but nevertheless, one of the most dangerous cities. Atlanta now is just now trying to conduct themselves in the way Philly was conducting itself when I was a child. And that's not no shots at Atlanta, because personally, I don't understand why any place wants to be considered dangerous.
Me neither.
But my mother, she already seen. I had been put out of so many schools by the time I made the 2nd grade. My mom just stopped sending me to school. There was no point no more. We lived across the street from a school and my mother would not send me there. She's like, I know how this is gonna end. You've been put out of every other school. And we know how this ends. I think what really sparked my mother's decision when to leave, I was about 7, maybe going on 8. There was a boy that used to always come to our house named Greg Gordon. My mother loved him to death. He used to always do stuff for my mother, run errands. And one day, I went to the bathroom, just came from outside playing as night, so I know I got to be in. And I see my mother leaned over a bathtub. The bathtub's running, and she's crying. My mother, I've rarely ever seen my mother cry in my life, so I think that's the earliest I can ever remember seeing my mother cry. She didn't say anything. She just left. I go over to the tub. There was a news clip article of that boy. He got killed by his cousin. He was 13. That and a couple other events made my mother say, I need to get my son out the city or I'm probably gonna lose my son. The only problem is that way of thinking was already embedded to me. Now, granted, because I came to Atlanta and Atlanta's not like Philly was, it was a slower shift, but the shift still ended up happening because it was already in me.
Right. About what year you remember coming this way?
I moved to Atlanta probably a week before my 11th birthday, September 26, 2006 to be exact.
Yeah, so you still call some of that, like you said, some of that old Atlanta. Things hadn't caught up to all that, what it is now today and all that.
Actually, to be honest with you, and it might be because my mindset and I'm not afraid of anything no more. Don't nobody tell you this, but when you go to prison, something dies in everybody when they go in prison that they can't get back. It can be something good that dies in you. It can be something bad that dies in you. But something dies in everybody that goes to prison. For me, a lot of fears I had beforehand, all out the window. Nothing hardly really concerns me.
Was that because of the experience or?
I had a couple experiences in there. I had knives pulled out of me more than one time. One of them was not even really for me. I was standing in between two people that had knives and I didn't want to go that route. I don't know what it was. I really don't know how to explain that one to be exact. But at some point in that sentence, a part of me died in there, both a good part of me and a bad part of me. The bad part was unnecessary fear, being afraid of things. And for what? Like, what do you have to be afraid of? Now, I'm not gonna say I still don't have certain fears now, but when it comes to like my life actually being in danger, all the way out the window.
That sounds free. Maybe not in the aspect of feeling that way in prison or whatever, but I think a lot of people aim to want to live a fearless life.
You think that
full of purpose at the same time, but
see, the nature of fear is a protective mechanism. It's in your part of the mind, I believe it's called the amygdala, where it's a protective mechanism. But when you get to that point, deers, right? Yeah. That flight or fight response.
Right.
But when you get to that point where you're willing, damn near volunteering your life for situations that you don't even have to, you need to ask, how free does that really feel? Because what's the point of being free if you can lose something you can't get back?
How big of a role did discernment play?
It helped me foresee things better. Mm-hmm. Like, I can look at a situation and tell when this situation is finna go that route. Now, when the actual day it will, that's up for grabs. But I'm able to see certain things, like a job-wise. I can tell when I'm in trouble at a job, just from people interactions. I can tell when this is a bad situation over here. I was at a party not too long ago away from here, and there was a guy there. He approached me, he was drunk, and he was jealous that his dog was more receptive to me than him. I looked at dude and said, before the night is over, dude gonna get into some bullshit. I automatically could tell the strangest thing in the world, but his dog didn't want to come to him. His dog wanted to stay with me. And he was jealous. And he said it in a way that was slick, but not overt. But I looked at him and said, he gonna get into some bullshit before this night is up. I know he gonna get into some bullshit. Nobody else but him. Maybe an hour and a half later, he was in the room, him and his girlfriend was in a full out fight. All because he was drunk and thought something which it really wasn't. I pulled my homegirl out there and I told you, your homeboy was gonna be into some bullshit for the night was up. She said, how you know? I said, because I can identify bullshit when bullshit is present.
A lot of people probably won't be able to see that. A lot of times they're under the influence of all kind of stuff or whatever. But you seem like you step in, you don't have a problem with stepping in. We already talked about your fear of being fearless and everything. But where does that stepping in come from?
Guilt. I've had a lot of friends that got killed. Some of them we was even supposed to be together when it happened. One in particular, and his birthday, actually his death anniversary date and his birthday, which are right next to each other, coming up soon. And we were supposed to link up while we was back in Atlanta from college. And I never went to go see him because I let myself get wrapped up in the politics I was already wrapped up in. I had to find out after everybody else that he'd already been killed. And a part of that is, I've never wanted to see none of my homeboys die. To this day, I've never seen one of my homeboys die. Out of all of them that's been killed, I've never had to see one of them die. So that stepping in is me knowing, one, it's more to this than that. It doesn't have to get to this point. Like most of the stuff we get killed for, we get hurt for.
It's over.
It's preventable.
Yeah.
I've never wanted to watch none of that. Even when I was affiliated and doing what I was doing, I always knew there were better ways. I never wanted to be in the bullshit unless the bullshit was just the only option left.
Right.
But if there was always a better way, why can't we take it?
Agreed, bro.
And again, that stems from my mother. My mother didn't tell me a lot of things we don't do, but since I was a baby, my mother told me we don't kill our own. Under no circumstance, we don't kill our own. And I'm proud to say I've never killed none of my own because of my mother's teachings.
Once again, man, shout out to Mom. You know what I'm saying? I think she had a hell of an impact. You know what I mean? So what led to you writing a book? Like, a lot of people, once again, a lot of people talk about the thing they want to do. They don't go forth and do it, especially with writing a book. And a book with Dad, I Love You, about the absentee father. Like, that is an original. I can honestly say I have not heard nobody cover that topic.
There is none. Like, part of me putting the book together was I did all my research mainly after I already got started.
Okay.
So, I wanted to see who I got to compete with in this field. Mm-hmm. This is the only book called How to Love an Absent Father. No one else has wrote this book. Now, granted, somebody could come out with one later on that might be more in depth and even better. That's the whole purpose of everything. You have to be the build. But this is the very first book of its kind. Nobody else has wrote a book on the subject, especially with two statements in it that completely contradict each other. Dad, I love you, but then next, how to love an absent father. Mm-hmm. What started the journey was, first incarcerated, I had to become sober. I'm not even just talking about drug-free sober. I'm talking about sober in heart. I had to learn how to clean my heart up. Because when we grow up in the environments we grow up in, we're never taught conflict resolution, which is why we have the problems we have. No one teaches how to resolve conflict. The first conflict you have to learn how to resolve is within yourself. You have to have self-reconciliation.
How do we do that?
You have to begin to have conversations with yourself. And a lot of us do it all the time without realizing it. Whether we're thinking about an old memory, that's a conversation with yourself. Because most time we think about the things we wish we could change or wish we could relive. Mm-hmm. That's a conversation with yourself. You have to now direct that conversation, have an actual conversation with yourself. Okay, I get mad about this. Why do I get mad about this? Like, what was the first thing that ever happened that made me mad about this? Those kinds of conversations. You're being direct and intentional. Mm-hmm. Part of my cleaning my heart was, I'm not a hateful person, but I had a lot of grudges. So I had to first figure out who was the very first person I held a grudge against. That person was my father. Like, a lot of the decisions I made, I felt I probably would have never made it if I had the actual influence of him. And he was the person, him and my mother were the two people I was holding a grudge against the most. Letting go of the grudge against my mother was easy and difficult, because the difference between my mother and my father, my biggest issue with him was he just left. So that means we actually didn't have no engagements with each other, which means outside of that, I had no reason to have anything against you. But my mother, we had many conflicts with each other. So that's what made ours difficult, is ours was continuous conflicts that I had to learn how to resolve. Him was just that root one.
Yeah, it's not there.
So once I learned how to forgive her, then I had to learn how to forgive him. Because I love my mother to death. I love my mother because when it's all said and done, that's who began raising me. Mm-hmm. Now, at some point, there was a break in there. When I mean raise, I mean mental shift. My mother was the root of that. So she started me, but it was other people who came in my life that helped elevate it.
That term, it takes a village.
But with my father, I had to start letting go of a lot of things. A situation that happened while I was incarcerated was My father actually reached out to my mother because my mother reached out to his old best friend. His best friend still had contact with him, let him know your son tried to get in touch with you. Because I had questions. These was around the time where I really had questions about our culture that I felt only he could properly answer because I don't know nothing about where he comes from. So only he can answer that. He reached out to my mother. He gave my mother his phone number. He called her, and then she called me. In prison, everybody got phones in prison.
Yeah.
Everybody got phones in prison.
Yeah, it ain't that TikToking.
That's how I actually started doing my first motivational videos was on Instagram in prison. I got them available. I'm posting something now.
I'm just gonna say, man, you gotta give us that video.
I'm posting something. I had stories while I was incarcerated. I had stories while I was in there. Yeah, phones is jumping in prison. So anybody incarcerated, don't get mad at me for telling because they ain't gonna get them from y'all anyway.
Shoot, I'm gonna say, y'all out here telling on yourself, boy. All that is, yo. Wow.
But yeah, so I called his number, who wasn't answering. I eventually told my mother, I've been reaching out to him, but he ain't reaching back. My mother told me, he said that you've been calling during the daytime when he's at work, you only call at night. I knew then that's not right, because I don't make no phone calls during the day. We have a whole system set up in the prison I was at when we make calls. We don't make none of our calls until, and I'm not finna go any further, because that ain't nobody business. But we had a system set up. So I knew something wasn't right, but I just let it go. Kept trying to reach out, nothing happened. My mother eventually hit me up and told me his real reason for reaching out. He was trying to hook back up with her. And once he seen that wasn't finna happen, he ducked out again. That hurt me. I actually cried about it for a little bit.
Shit, I'm mad for you.
But that's where the process of actually started. The only way that could hurt me meant I had to still been holding on to that.
How would you? I mean, how else would you be able to let go of that? I mean, when that came to a head, I think anybody else would probably be like, all right, well, she was my friend, but fuck him. You know what I'm saying? And go on from that, but you seem to take a different path.
I did what everybody else do when they have something they have to deal with, but they don't want to. And it can be a couple things people do. Some people start getting high, which was something I told us I'm not doing no more.
Right.
So for me, it was work. I was already a laborer in the Islamic community. But when something like that happened, I got to put in more work now. I don't want to think about nothing. So now I'm dedicating myself, not out of just faith by itself, but for distraction. I ended up becoming one of the most frowned upon people in the community because I was on everybody. I was on, hey, what rule are you breaking? We ain't supposed to be doing this. What you doing? My most miserable Ramadan was 2017 because every second day I'm on somebody. To the point, the guy that was grooming me, and he was a tyrant within himself, came to me and said, hey bro, you need to chill. And that's when the fallout had happened. So then now I had to find a whole new routine. So now I'm finding everything to keep myself busy. I didn't actually start thinking about it again until 2020 or 21. It had to be 2020 when COVID happened. Now I'm watching the news. I'm watching all different type of news programs. Around this time, there's a war that just jumped off in Ethiopia. It's the Tht Dud War in the government, which is the Amhara-based led government at the time. The war had jumped off, and I'm watching the news. I never cared about Ethiopian politics. Never cared for them. But I'm watching the news one day. There was a girl that had the camera on, and they did a close-up on her. And they closed up on her eyes, and she looked directly in the camera. And that was the first time I ever felt a connection. For some reason, I felt like what's happening to her is happening to me too, but I don't know why I feel this way. Now I had questions.
Right, I was just like, where did that lead you mentally? Like,
I had questions. Now I wanted to actually get to know the culture. Didn't care what it was.
So it had nothing to do with your father or
not even
anything
just that
like
moment.
that. It was just.
But that was actually where the journey began, where I need to find my father, because there's certain questions I can't ask nobody else but him. So now the one reason for wanting to reach out is not even about you, but this is really about me. There's a side of me that I need to know, and unfortunately, you're the only person who can answer certain questions. At the time, I didn't even know what ethnic group my father was from. I didn't even know they had ethnic groups in Ethiopia. I thought everybody was in Ethiopia.
Really?
They about 80-something ethnic groups. My father's from the ethnic.
I ain't gonna lie, you teaching me something right now.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
The irony in that is the same girl who they did a close-up on, she's from the region my father's from. She's Tigra. My father's Tigra. So that automatically sparked the curiosity that I had a connection to somebody, and I didn't even know we have the same bloodlines. But from that moment on, I just wanted to learn more about the culture.
That's interesting, man.
Then I started dealing with this girl. She became like my pen pal teacher. She was Ethiopian.
Right.
Then it developed, which I'm charming, so you know.
I'm about to say he got that mouthpiece.
I'm charming, so it ended up developing. But she started helping me learn things. Mm-hmm. And she used to ask me sometimes, well, how do you feel about your father? I'm like, well, I ain't got no hatred towards dude, but I don't love him either. He is who he is. Then one day I had a dream, and it's one of the most vivid dreams I've had. I remember most of my dreams. I remember this one specifically. I'm back in Philadelphia. I'm at an apartment. Actually, I'm in the apartment that was the area we lived in the longest in Philly. But we're in an apartment. There's a knocking at the door. I want to see who's at the door, and it's my father from when I last seen him. He comes inside, no invitation, he just comes inside. So I'm like, and the kid in me comes alive. So the adult in me wants to tell you, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
The kid in me won't do it. So I let him stay, let him lounge, do what he do. He goes to the bedroom to say he's gonna take a nap. I get a phone call from my mother. She's telling me she's gonna come over. I know for a fact they can't be in the same place, so my mother might kill this man.
Oh, shit.
So I tell him, you need to leave. My mother's coming. And I remember the words he said specifically in my dream. Oh yeah, my reason for coming over here. And I snapped inside. I'm chasing him around. I got a knife. I'm trying to kill this man because you really playing with me. He going off of me, telling me he hates me, he never wanted to have me. I'm letting him know I hate him too. I'm crying. I'm full crying in my dream.
Right.
And I'm going off. I push him out the house. Before I get to push him out, he pushed the door back open and says, I love you. I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm like this. And I'm still there just crying. I wake up. I'm damn near in tears when I wake up. But inside me, something's telling me this man's living with something that he ain't forgave himself about. And you need to go let him know that you don't got no hatred for him. So fast forward, I get out of prison. 2 months out of getting out of prison, I'm looking for my son's mother. I have an 8-year-old now. He was a baby when I got incarcerated. So I'm looking for my son's mother. The same means I used to find her. I'm like, it might be on a whim, because my father's an immigrant. I don't even know if he ever got his citizenship.
Really?
I'm for the search for him. I look him up, I actually find him. I call the number, he answers. I tell him who I am, and he hangs up on me. Thinking there was probably a disconnect on my line, because I'm in an area where my service isn't great anyway.
Right.
I call him back, and he answers, and I just hear a bunch of heavy breathing. There's no words now coming, just breathing. And he hangs up again. Instantly, I went sporadic, going nuts. But after that, I didn't hold no hatred towards him.
Right.
Because I spent too much time trying to learn how to love him.
Man, that's real. So, like,
how the book came about, I'm a part of this group called BWO.
Shout out.
Guys leading is 19 Keys, Jehu, and Quay. Shout out to y'all brothers, by the way. 19
Keys. What's up, brother?
And Keys, back in November, he told us we all have to be authors of a book.
Okay.
I'm a procrastinator, so I forgot all about that. Then come January, he gave the book a due date. It was like 2 weeks. I'm like, shit. I ain't even thought of a topic. Initially, I was going to write a book on prisoner communication. Because prisoners, look, in prison, if you don't get the gift of gab, you might die in here. And I mean that fiercely and literally. Almost most of the things you accomplish in here is how you talk. Like, I wasn't a great, and that's why I never want to do public speaking. I wasn't a great conversationalist for small talk. Now, real deep philosophical conference, I can go off. But actually just talking to people, and most people don't want to get engaged in deep talk if they don't know. I had no skills at that. So I had to learn from other brothers. I had to even stop myself from being jealous of brothers who could do it and learn to admire them for their gifts.
Oh, so you were aware then that, hey, I ain't got that same kind of mouthpiece.
Because mind you, out here in the streets, like especially with women, I could talk to females, but it was on a sexual level.
Right.
Not just can we talk. Didn't even know how to do it.
Gotcha.
Like I didn't even know how to have a conversation with one for more than 5 minutes without the end of it wondering.
So that monkey.
Yeah, I had to know like what goes from here.
Right.
So prison, you really have to learn how to do all these things. I'm aware I'm not strong in this. And I started becoming jealous of brothers because I just didn't know how to go and ask them to show me how to do it. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan tells us, if you find yourself jealous of somebody, help them. I tell people, if you find yourself jealous of somebody, admire them. It's more like what you're jealous about is something you want. Probably even something tangible you can get. All you gotta do is ask for help. That works both ways. You can help them.
Stop hating, start asking.
Off top.
Got you.
So, I wanted to write a book on effective ways to communicate like a prisoner. But I couldn't focus on it because I could not think about the situation, stop thinking about the situation with my dad. So the shorty I was talking to at the time, she told me, well, maybe that's what you just need to write about, man. At first, I wrote a short story right after what happened with my dad. And I'm going to send it to you, by the way, because I think we talked about it before. I got to get your email.
Yeah, let's get it.
But I wrote a short story from the perspective of my father. The moment that happened when he got that phone call to before it happened and afterwards. I wrote all from his perspective. But then I thought about it. I said, well, what if I wrote a book telling people how I actually love my father? Like, what got me to there? So many times I told myself, I'm not finna do this no more. Because it got more emotional than I wanted to admit. But things kept happening that told me, if you don't do this, you're deserving people. There was a 6-year-old man that had broke down in tears in front of me and told me at 60 he still wishes his father comes and hold him. He said it's never happening because his father's dead.
Ain't gonna lie, that's scary.
So too many people kept telling me you don't get how necessary this is.
No, bro, you are on to something, bro, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, a lot of people talking, a lot of people speaking. This is not a subject that they hit on. You know what I'm saying? There's not a subject that they hit on at all. And I think that this message will free a lot of people. It will give them the strength and understanding on how to carry out certain things and act on certain things. You know what I'm saying? Without having to tell you this is what you should do or whatever the case. It was just, like I said, you telling the story. And just me hearing it, you know what I'm saying? It gives me a lot of things to think about character-wise. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of stuff that I feel like you said, I procrastinate. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes my mind be on a lot of things. And this right here would just be able to help, like I said, with the emotional guidance when it comes to dealing with fathers anyway, I think. You know what I'm saying? So, like I said, I got siblings that grew up without my father, and I grew up with my father. You feel what I'm saying? And even though I have a good relationship with them, they may still have. So that can be a book that I can end up passing on, and a conversation I can end up having and leading into just because of what you were able to do today. You know what I'm saying? So I appreciate that. I'm definitely gonna get me a copy of the book. Just y'all go get your copy of the book. Reach out to this brother, man. He is full of knowledge, clearly, because I ain't have to say nothing really most of this time. I'm really getting schooled here. We live to learn. You know what I'm saying? Man, let me know where you can find the book. Where can we buy the book? Where can we find you? We gotta have you come out and speak, man.
Well, the beauty is, if you live in Atlanta, one, I love interacting with people. If you live in Atlanta, I will personally bring the book for you. Now, if you don't live in Atlanta, and I'm not traveling outside of Atlanta, I'm sorry to hear that, but I'm not doing that. You can go to Amazon, type in How to Love an Absent Father. The book is called Dad, I Love You, How to Love an Absent Father, but that's real long. Type in How to Love an Absent Father. This will be the cover you see. Now, the book is broken up into 4 parts.
Okay.
The first part is my background, the effects of not having my father. And it's in 4 parts. The first one is how I looked at myself. Second one is how I attached myself to others. The third, my relationship with women. And the fourth one, my unwillingness to accept a male authority. That's the background because one, when people see me, people don't see a guy that's been to prison for almost 10 years of his life.
I'm not gonna lie, I judge the book by its cover.
But that's fine. And it's like that because even when I speak to other Ethiopians and I tell them Ethiopian, they automatically assume my father's there, or at least one of my Ethiopian parents are there. So when I really start just breaking down to them, my dad left. They don't understand that really.
That's not really a part of the culture over there like this.
Even a girl, because I was explaining to a girl how I had my child a wedlock. She said, well, your father didn't let you? I said, I didn't have my father. She said, what do you mean? He left. She said, a Habesha man that left his child? I said, yeah, that happens. So that's the first part is really to help you relate to my background because there's many ways not having my father affected me. But again, with the Ethiopian thing, that didn't really affect too many people.
Right.
And too many people walk around half Ethiopian.
Right.
So I wanted to make this as general as possible so people can relate. Like, damn, that got me too.
I think people still will be able to identify, man, with not being able to connect to the other side to a certain degree. Maybe not Ethiopian, but everybody has a form or version of that because they're missing the other side of them. You know what I mean? So.
But the minute you put that Ethiopia on there, a person can easily detach themselves. It's like this man named Neil Davis. He always says people don't buy products for your benefit; they buy it for theirs.
Right.
So to put that in there is like, I mean, I don't know how that benefits me. I'm not Ethiopian.
Oh, right.
Yeah. But the first part is just so you can relate to the background. Understand these are more open issues. These aren't just closed to certain people. The second part of the book is the meat of the book. This is the actual steps I took. It's 4 steps. The first one is acknowledging the pain. The second one is accepting the pain. The third one is forgiveness. To me, is the most crucial one. And then the fourth one is learning how to love. Now, the third one, and even the second one, because you got to understand, people don't realize acknowledging the pain and accepting the pain are not the same. Acknowledging is awareness.
Okay.
Almost all of us are aware of our problems. That's why we look for coping mechanisms. Accepting it is when you start embracing it and now start actually looking for solutions to overcome it. Now, the third part of the book is for single mothers and the absent fathers. I give some absent mothers practical tips they can use in raising a son. And I made sure, and I want to clarify this book I geared towards men. Why? Because I believe there's too many men out here now telling women how they're supposed to feel when they can't feel that. A son not having his father is a whole different relationship than a daughter not having her father. I don't know what it's like for a female not having her father. I have sisters, and even then sometimes they can't explain to me how they feel. And if they can't explain it to me, then I definitely can't understand it because I can't feel it.
Right.
And then the second part is for the absent fathers who may be looking to get back in their children's life, but don't know how to. Personally, I'm going through this because, again, I spent the first practically 7 years of my son's life in prison. He thought somebody else was actually his dad the entire time. So he had to find out after I got out, this is my father. So it's rough because me and his mother left on bad terms, which is my fault. I believe in accountability to the fullest.
Agreed.
So if it was something you could have controlled, it's your fault if it didn't happen. My son's mother actually tried to work things with me. I didn't. So once I got incarcerated, that was the final straw for her. Oh, she wanted smoke. Now I'm out. I didn't heal through it. I forgot I had time incarcerated to heal. She still had to deal with all the problems of being a single mother, which means her healing never really got to happen.
Right.
Because she had to deal with all the brunts of being a single mother, then having other kids on top of that, which gives her less time to really think. So I got to heal. She didn't. So now I'm dealing with that. And then my son, he's confused because he's still attached to the man that he thought was his father, which is understandable. And I give dude his props. Because you helped raise my son. You didn't have to.
That's deep, bro. Like, that's deep, bro. For real. I mean, even for you to even come on and be able to say, hey, shout out to the other man for stepping up and taking care of my, like, that's a lot, bro. Like, you really are, I think you really are showing that you are healed in a lot of ways. But I mean, let's be real, it's a lot of people that ain't to be able to accept accountability and just be an example. I'm telling you, bro, you gonna be the male Oprah. Not that you won't be, but I'm saying, man, I'm just saying the message is really, that's something I would say as a community, as a people, that is something that we actually need, bro. This is a conversation that we need. And this damn sure ain't gonna be the last time that me and you sit down and chop it up, man, because I know that you got more and more. So we gonna stay in touch, man. We gonna work together. We gonna get some things done, definitely, man. Any way that I can support you, let us know. You know what I'm saying?
I want to leave this last note for everybody.
Please do.
One, this is not one of these books that tells you, oh, you can get this way in 30 days, 60 days, 9 days. The reality is healing is all up to you. It took me 7 years. And that was just me going through trial and error. I didn't have nobody actually guiding me on how to get to that point. I was figuring out over own, still dealing on top of everything I had to deal with. Because being incarcerated, you always thinking about how not to get yourself killed, how not to try to kill somebody else. Like the conversations I had with my family was, I only have 3 realities. I'm going to kill somebody here, someone's going to kill me, or I'm going to come home. There's no other reality but these 3. So there's no time limit on the healing. The only time limit is when it's too late. And that too late is when you pass yourself. Because dying hurt feels so much different than dying healed. Because when you dying hurt, you think about everything you could have done. Dying healed is thinking about everything you've done. And then the second one, even through the healing process, there's no such thing as 100% healing. Every blue moon it'll get to you. There are times I think about it, but I don't let it overcome me because I understand where I've gotten to.
Appreciate you coming by, bro. Like I said, it's gonna be a part 2 of this. You know what I'm saying? Because this is something I feel like this is a conversation that has to be expanded. You know what I'm saying? This is a healing conversation, not a bitter conversation. You know what I'm saying? So, hey man, I hope y'all learned something. I damn sure did. You know what I'm saying? Which is why I'm a damn sure be touching, reaching out to my brother and tapping in with him. You know what I mean? Anything that's all we say, man, before we ride up out of here, man.
As I told you, I go by the name I Am. To live in that I Am and nothing else except that, you need to stop living in who you were. And that's one of the hardest things for people to do. Is every day we spend time living in who we were yesterday instead of living to be who we are today. Peace and blessings.